So, hello and welcome to the Capa Podcast. My name's Matt Ryder and I'm the Senior Practitioner with Capa First Response. And I'm joined by Jane Griffiths, CEO and founder of Capa First Response, and Helen Bonnick of Holes in the Wall and patron of Capa First Response. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hi there, Matt.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Jane. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Good to have you guys. It's good to have you here. So, this is a bit of an intro, if you like, or a welcome to our new podcast series, which
exciting stuff.
It is exciting, isn't it?
Yay! We're doing it at last.
We're doing it, yeah. So actually, I mean, in the interest of openness, we've actually recorded the series already, and this is kind of done after. So what we thought we'd do is put this one out first as a little bit of a, like I say, an introduction to what we're going to be talking about, and to let you know a bit more about who we are, what we're talking about, and who this podcast is for. So, to begin with, do you guys want to tell us a little bit about yourselves? I don't know if you want to... Helen, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do that, Matt. So, my name's Helen Bonnick, and I've been really interested in the whole issue of when children are using harmful and aggressive behaviours towards their parents and carers for coming up to 20 years now. Doing a little bit of research, but a lot of networking, a lot of campaigning. And I founded Holes in the Wall in 2011, which with the aim of bringing people together and bringing knowledge and resources together. So my main part of this, if you like, is joining people together, trying to get the word out there, trying to raise awareness, trying to develop resources, and to make life better for families as much as possible.
Brilliant. And Jane?
Jane Griffiths. I founded Capa in 2019. There was a real gap for families trying to get support for a child using harmful or aggressive behaviours towards a parent or a carer. A bit of a postcode lottery, really, of what was available in somebody's area, and that's if they even knew what they were trying to get support for, what was this thing that they were talking about. And I really wanted to kind of raise awareness of what was happening, but also to offer a service to families and carers, regardless of where they are in the country.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to travel to places, or they, if they didn't sort of sit in a certain postcode that had support in this particular area, they could still access support. I've been working, so I probably should say that I've been working in the field. I think I came involved around about 2010. So I've been doing this for about 13 years, and worked on several programs before setting up Capa, really.
Cool. My name's Matt. I am the Senior Practitioner, as I said at the beginning, of Capa First Response. And I've been working with families, young people in a variety of settings for, I think, about 12 years now. And I've been working in this particular area for just over 4 years now. So working with Capa in particular. So to start with, we've alluded to what it is that we're talking about in these podcasts. Children using harmful and aggressive behaviours in the home. But should we just say, the kind of things that we're going to be looking at, the kind of behaviours we're going to be looking at and talking about in this series?
So, I mean, typically we'd be talking about children of from a very young age up to perhaps 18, or as Jane said, 25, and thinking about behaviours from that child, which could be verbal, defiance or rudeness or abuse or lies perhaps as well, but then also physical harm, hitting, pinching, kicking, maybe threatening with weapons, thinking about coercion and behaviours that seek to control what's going on in the house, sometimes financial abuse, whether that's damaging things or taking money or making threats. So in lots of ways, behaviours that reach into every part of a family's life. And what we often say is that how do you know when it flips over from normal toddler behaviour or normal teenage stroppiness into what we're talking about here, children using these behaviours? And I think the answer that I would always give is, if someone says, I'm afraid of my child, that we've crossed the line at that point. So when parents feel afraid of their child, or when they're changing the way they live in order to accommodate what's going on. That's when we're really talking about behaviours that are challenging and harmful and aggressive in a different sort of way.
Yeah.
We talk about treading on eggshells, don't we? And often parents and carers will contact us and say, I am treading on eggshells. And, dealing with a child's behaviour at 6 is very different from dealing with that child's behaviour at 16. So the importance of getting some support earlier on is what we're striving for as well in raising awareness, because often parents don't know, okay, so my 6-year-old won't listen to me. They maybe are being defiant. They struggling with maybe transitions from one activity to another activity, or they're struggling at school and they're coming home and there's lots of anger and, maybe hitting their siblings, hitting them, throwing things at a parent, calling a parent names, refusing to come out of their bedroom, refusing to do things. And at what point do you say, okay, 6, I can cope with that. 7, I can deal with it because they're still little and I can maybe reason with them. Or for some parents, it's about being able to restrain them because, they're still 7 or 8, so smaller maybe and not as strong. But fast forward that to, 16 and 17, and those behaviours, are much more embedded, but also, harder for parents to manage in the way that maybe they did. So you're right. I'm still not suggesting parents come to us when their child is 6 or 7 because maybe they've had a temper tantrum. We're talking about behaviours happening over a period of time, and the parent, like you say, changing how they parent for fear of what may happen, or treading on eggshells, or frightened of what may happen.
And I'm going to say there, Jane, that you're saying at 6 and 7, it may be easy to handle, and certainly compared with a 17-year-old. But I think for many families already by then, the behaviour is such that it's causing real distress to parents. And what we see is the impact on every member of the family, don't we? That whether that's economic or or physical, the harm that's caused, or psychological, the huge levels of depression and anxiety caused for parents as well in this instance. So it's something that has a real impact on family members, and something that we need to be addressing it as early as possible to bring about change for the young person, but also for the welfare and the safety of every family member.
And that's why we chose, again, as an organisation when we set it up, the importance of working with the whole family, whoever that family is, to the person, whether it's your next door neighbour, whether it's your aunt, your mum that's helping you out, because of the impact it has on the family as a whole. And it is for parents and carers. We're not just, we're talking about those people that look after, young people, whether it's on a special guardianship order, whether it's a fostering arrangement, whether it's an informal arrangement that you're taking care of a child because they can't live in the home. So it is really for anybody who is looking after a child.
Yeah.
Or those professionals who are trying to support families.
I was just going to say, I mentioned earlier that I've been interested in this issue for about 20 years. And I was just reflecting on the fact that 20 years ago, when I started looking at how the focus of my work was how easy is it for parents to find help. And 20 years ago, the answer was impossible. Really, really difficult. Very few services around the country. Thankfully, in the last 20 years, there are more services. As Jane said, it can still be a bit of a postcode lottery. But really hoping that through these sorts of podcasts, just chatting, making this more accessible. Accessible is a funny word, isn't it? More easy to understand and grasp what we're talking about, I suppose. To make people familiar with the ideas, familiar with the language that people are using, so that it is then easier to understand what people are experiencing, understand how you might be able to get help, understand how you might be able to change what's going on in the family.
Because a lot of times there's a lot of feelings of isolation around this, not knowing where to turn or who you can talk to about it. sometimes there's shame around it. People don't want to talk about it,
and people feel like they're the only person it's happening to.
Yeah.
And that really can add to the feelings of guilt and shame and blame. But
it's not the case.
Well, it's really hard to know how much, because people don't talk about what's going on. Even when people come forward for help, we don't know what proportion there are. But if you look at all the research together, it seems to suggest that as many as 10% of families with adolescents particularly may be experiencing some form of abuse, violence, aggression, however you term it. And
10%, it's a lot, right?
10% at some level. And then of those, maybe, a smaller amount will be having very serious difficulties, which mean that they're seriously frightened of their child, and that they're anxious for what might happen. They're really fearing for themselves and their family. And that's having a huge impact on their life, and they're changing their behaviour and what they're doing on a daily basis to accommodate that. So it's not something that's really, really rare. It's not something that is, you're the only person this has ever happened to. We are starting to understand it better, starting to talk about it better.
Yeah.
And we ran a event a couple of weeks ago for parents and carers. And actually one of the things that came out of that event was parents saying, "Oh, I don't feel so alone. It's not just me. It's so nice to hear, and be in a space with other people and hear similar things."
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And I think that's one of the reasons for the podcast, isn't it? So people don't feel alone. They don't feel they're the only ones. There is hope.
Yeah.
I hope we give hope.
It's a really strong message. I think the hope isn't there, that things can improve.
Yeah. And I think you need to start the conversation to begin with. You need to look and see understand what help is available. Look to see who might be able to help you with it, what you can do to change the situation, influence the situation. I think it's when you feel stuck and you feel like you don't know where to turn, you don't know who to talk to, that's when things can feel more hopeless. So hopefully with these podcasts, this is the start of some of those conversations. Start to sort of think about it in slightly different, or just explore it and understand it a little bit better.
And we do delve into it, don't we? We've picked some subjects which are the things that we tend to get asked the most.
Yeah.
So the first series, we kind of tried to concentrate on what are the frequently asked questions from parents and professionals. So we tried to answer that in this first series, so we can kind of feel like that's the foundation of what we're starting with. Yeah. And definitely. Hopefully we'll grow and talk about different things as the series evolve. But I think we really delved quite into the subjects and gave them a good discussionary.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that the right word?
I don't know. It sounds good. I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah,
okay.
It sounds like a good word. I think the conversations we've had are, well, hopefully I think people will find them interesting, but really we want them to be useful as well.
Yeah. So we've talked about schools, haven't we? We've talked about the impact of schools in this behaviour. We've talked about neurodiversity and
age. So what difference that makes in terms of how we look at this behaviour and how it affects the behaviour.
And terminology and language, which is huge.
Yeah.
But I don't know, well, parents and, carers may feel that they get something more from this one, but it's really thinking about the wider issue, wasn't it, on a national level, really?
Look, I think talking about the terminology, because we kind of spoke about it after we recorded it and we've been thinking about it. I think it's really important because the way we talk about something influences the way we think about it.
Yeah.
And then the way we think about something will influence the way we respond to it. So it is really important that we do think about the way we're talking, the kind of language we're using, the way we talk about it, the way we think about it, because ultimately that kind of makes a difference in terms of, like I say, how we respond and what we can do to help in the situation. So that's why we talked about that a little bit. I just wanted to just quickly talk about how people might have heard this kind of behaviour referred to. So they might have heard the term child to parent abuse, child against parent abuse, child against parent violence and aggression. There's lots of different terms, and like we said earlier on, we actually dedicate a whole podcast to talking about the different terms and why we use some and why we sort of try and avoid using others. But those are some of the terms that you might have heard used in relation to this kind of behaviour. Just so we're clear, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you recognise any of those terms, then that's the thing that we're going to be discussing. You might have heard the term and you might think, oh, what does that mean, or does that relate to me? Well, those terms are relating to the sorts of behaviours that we've been describing previously. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
As you say, that's one of the issues we discuss, and it is hard to know what terminology to use sometimes, isn't it? As to find words that people will recognise and feel that they can own for their situation.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Is there anything else we need to tell the good listeners before we wrap this up and we let them get into the nuts and bolts of the proper podcast?
I'm trying to think what would be really helpful for this for people to hear. Really, I think we've probably covered quite a lot. I'm trying to think.
Well, I'm going to say this. Right, we are going to have a number of podcasts for you. Each one looking at a different area that we see relating to this behaviour, as Jane spoke about earlier on. So there might be one that you think, oh, maybe it doesn't really relate to me that much. But I would say that each of them, what comes up a lot, that there are links in each one. So I think there's useful stuff in each one of these podcasts that we're about to put out. And there are themes that kind of tie all of it together. So I really hope that you enjoy them, and that you find them useful.
I think it would be helpful, Matt, just to also say, get in touch with us. What do you want to hear? We're putting a series 2 together. We hope to have some guest speakers, covering different areas. But what do you need? Yeah. Whether you're a professional, you're a parent, you're a carer, a family member, what would you like to hear us talk about? Because between us, we have a lot of experience in this area, but we also are connected with lots of other people that have experience in this area.
Yeah.
So, we really want to try to make it as a valuable a space as possible.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find all our links to our website and our different online platforms that we use. You can find that all in the show notes. And yeah, we look forward to getting in touch with you, or you getting in touch with us, rather. I'll probably cut that out.
No, don't. That's all right.
Oh dear. All right. Anything else, guys?
No, I think that's it.
I know. Yeah, I think we covered it. All right.
Cool. So that's the intro to the podcast. And yeah, we look forward to having you with us for the rest of the series.